How did last week go? Talk to me about what you learned from Nathan, how it went, what you're excited about, what you're terrified of. How are we thinking about DevOps?
I hate dealing with domain registrars.
Hmm. Yeah, DNS is a fun thing to learn about. Do not forget your Namecheap passwords because that will come back to bite you later in the program. I cannot tell you how many password resets or two-factor problems that we run into with students. So please make sure that you have those passwords written down or saved somewhere and that you remember how the two-factor authentication is set up. A lot of people buy their domains and then get locked out of them by the end of the cohort. But DNS is one of those things that is really intimidating to learn until you really understand it. And then once you do, something kind of just clicks about it. I find DNS super interesting because it's pretty much the only system that we work with that is not instantaneous, right? So we are so used to doing something and then knowing right away if it works or if it doesn't work. But with DNS, it can actually take a full 24 to 48 hours to propagate. And the reason it does that is because it actually sends that information out to a bunch of different database servers, basically, all across the internet so people can get to it. So I cannot tell you how many clients I've had say, well, I can't see the site, right? And why can't I see the site? Why can't I see the site? And it's like, well, it takes 48 hours to update those settings, and then you start questioning yourself and you're going, oh, did I set that up right? But the domain process is less than perfect, but definitely a good thing to learn and get experience with. And yes, some domains, Google Domains was excellent in transferring things over, and it was like nearly instantaneous. And then Google Domains sold out to Squarespace. And Squarespace Domains takes the full like 7 days, and they hold on to it, and there's no way to expedite it. And so domains are a common pain point, but the good news is with experience, they do eventually become a lot less scary. What else from last week?
We
Okay,
uh hang on.
go ahead.
We did GitHub. So now that was fun. Learning a little bit more GitHub desktop and how to like set your files and GitHub and if you want to work with somebody, like they could also, I guess, fork it so y'all could work on it and stuff. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yep, forking and branching, right? Forking is more for if it's a bigger public open source project, and you want to make your own version of it. Of course, you can always make pull requests back into that same repository, but branches is also a more advanced Git feature of, hey, I'm working on this feature, and then I'm going to branch off into another feature and work on it. But Git is by far the de facto sort version control software VCS that the entire industry uses. And so if you are working on a team at a company, there is a 99% chance that if they are using any version control software, they are probably using Git. They may host it on GitHub or Bitbucket or GitLab, all different cloud providers of Git, the software itself. But lots of different options out there for maintaining your code. I do want to do a quick reminder that at the end of the program, we highly encourage you to wipe your computer. That is as long as all of the funding ducks are in a row, there's a good chance that you will get to keep your computer at the end of the program. Can't promise it yet. But we learned the hard way that once we release the computers from the uh, Apple MDM, the Apple Business, the manager software, you can get locked out of your computer when you do an OS update. So GitHub is a great opportunity to start backing up your files, right? So if anything happens to your computer or you get to the end of the program and you want to have all of your code uploaded and stored in one place, GitHub is the perfect opportunity to do that. You can set your repositories for private. So if you just want to have a backup, but you don't want the whole world to see them, you can do that. If you are proud of the project and want to make it more of a portfolio piece, GitHub is an excellent place to start those repos, start updating that portfolio site that we worked on 2 or 3 weeks ago, and start linking some things in there. Anything else from last week?
We learned how to use the terminal a little bit.
Yeah, so hopefully that was just opening the door a little bit. We touched on the terminal just a tiny bit with Node and running our first JavaScript apps. But as we get into more back-end development, we will definitely be using more of the terminal. We'll do more formal practice there with CDing around directories and making folders, making files, all of that kind of stuff. Terminal I think, is a little bit like DNS, right? It's really scary when you get started in it. But once you kind of get the basics down, all of a sudden you realize it's not quite as intimidating as you might have thought. So glad to hear that you're getting a little bit more terminal experience, and we'll definitely be diving into that more in the backend section. Okay, last call for anything else from last week. Any questions that you may have that have popped up? Anything in general? Okie doke. So where are we headed? Our next project is making a little browser calculator, and that is kind of our first project where we start getting more experience with the document object model, right? We did our little to-do list app where we said, hey, I want to type this in, I want to get the text, I want to update it on the page. Well, we're going to get more practice with that in our calculator, except in our calculator, we get to build a little bit more of a user interface, right? It's going to be still interactive. We're still going to have all the number pad buttons, and we have to display the output and all of that stuff. So we will be working on that in the second half of class. And then we are going to revisit the weather app, and we're going to make the weather app a little bit more interactive. We're going to get more practice again with the document object model. We're going to practice with our JavaScript data structures of, hey, we need to store this data somewhere. We need to update different pieces of information when the user interacts with the page. And we're going to basically slowly creep our way up in our JavaScript experience, and get more practice with the document object model, with data structures, with the JavaScript syntax, with loops, with all of that stuff. And it is all project-based from here on out, right? So that first week of overloading you on JavaScript before Nathan, that is, again, to just get all the concepts out there, right? To get them out on the table so that when you hear me say variable or object or loop or whatever it is, I'm not expecting you to be an expert with them. I'm not expecting you to be able to use them out of the gate, but we've got 3 more weeks of JavaScript now to practice with all of those projects. So before we dive into getting our calculator up and running, we are going to do our capstone check-ins. And so I think it's more of a organic thing of whoever would like to go first, and you guys can just volunteer, so there's no set list. With that said, highly encourage you to go now and kind of share your project idea. And then you can share your wireframes or the wireframes that you have done. And then I will be providing feedback to you in Canvas. So make sure you have submitted your wireframes in Canvas as well. And that's where I will be providing you feedback of, hey, you're either exceeding expectations, you've got this all planned out, can't wait to see this in your code. You're either going to be meeting expectations, which is going to be more of the, hey, you're on the right track, you got everything you need for now, keep on going. Or that below expectations, which is, hey, we want to see a little bit more planning in your wireframes. We want to see a little bit more solidity with your project ideas. We want to see a little bit more built out. So that is kind of where we'll be shooting in the grading. Again, you'll be getting that Canvas, that feedback in Canvas in the next day or two. That will not be publicly posted or shared or anything, nor will you'll grade. But we do take the time to do this in class because it gives you an idea of everyone's capstone, where they started with their ideas, and getting to see their progress over the course of the cohort. So with all of that said, would anyone like to go first? I promise I can't bite over
I can
Zoom.
go.
Sure.
Do you want me to pull up my stuff, or do you have it?
Yeah, if you can pull it up, just because I try to take notes as people are presenting.
There we go. This should be less of a pain in the ass, I think. Or no, it's not gonna let me. Is there a way I can do like a slideshow of a folder of photos? I mean, I guess I can go back in my actual photos app.
If you single click on the photo and hit the space bar, you should be able to use the arrow keys to navigate between them.
Ah, wonderful. There you go. Okay. And I will share my screen. Yeah, so we were talking about this, I think right before you came in. I don't know if you heard the tail end of that. So my Capstone is building a case management software for specifically early intervention. So essentially digitizing the physical records of the child. So it has to do with like their evaluations, the services they're receiving, any notes about the services they're receiving, sort of like speech therapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy, all that. So this is really a tool for, the service coordinators who are coordinating all those services between the therapies and kind of monitoring the child, keeping track of their tasks. They get assigned multiple cases, so it can get overwhelming doing it on paper. So let me go. All right, so first login screen. It's a secure site, so everybody has to log in no matter what. There's no remember me auto sign in kind of thing. I mean, you can populate the input fields, but everybody will have to go through the login screen. Which will, once you log in, it will bring you to your service coordinator dashboard. It's going to have a list of your time sensitive tasks up here, with a way to go into and see the rest of the tasks that you have to do. Typical things that you'll see are, scheduling your eval for so-and-so, have to do that within 45 days. And then you can probably an accordion to pull down to like primary and secondary number, or depending on what the task is, something relevant to that. This populates with all the cases that are assigned to the service coordinator. You can filter it by, referral date, by receiving services for like, filter out all the ones that are receiving speech. You can sort it by alphabetical, date of birth, what have you. Clicking on one of those files will bring you to the case view. That's going to have all the child's demographics, family info, the care team, which is really important to have. So you can see at a really quick glance who should have access to the information pertaining to the child's case. So that way you're not divulging any information. A lot of times in early intervention, people have, custody issues. They're moving in with grandma, mom's not allowed to have any access whatsoever. So if you can really quick glance at who's allowed to see, the child's address, that's a very big security thing. Over here, this is where the paper record has been digitized. I made a slight change here where these all have view buttons to kind of make it a little more obvious that they're supposed to be clicked on. But this will have all the service plan in it, evaluation records and notes that the service coordinator takes, any records that are transferred from pediatricians' offices, all the consent and authorizations, billing and insurance information. They also track unit time to get reimbursed. Service coordinators do anyway. Any travel information, so travel authorizations and destinations, who's allowed to pick the child up, drop the child off essentially. And then transition to CPSC, which is, early intervention, handles 0 to, but not including their 3rd birthday. And then after that, it's the same program, but it's facilitated through the school district that the child lives in. So that's a big part of it too. Moving on, this is some of the outline, trying to get a good idea of, what I'm doing. Most of this you've seen already. Let's see here. Is mine? I think it stopped working. Let me try this. All right. This is just a brief sketch of like a notification. This isn't the same nav bar. That's now an icon over here. It's just going to pop up. And you can see notifications at a glance. Reset password screens. Probably won't have one to confirm email address because it's most likely going to have to be done by an admin. These two already. Report screen. You have a lot of reports tools over here. Things that New York State's looking for, any guidelines, previous reports. You have canned reports, which are like pre-made reports that are like, usually run monthly numbers. So instead of like making your own custom report every single time, you can just click run this report. And then stuff for like medical records technicians, which is pulling into like very specific things. I want to look at all the children that this service coordinator had from this time to this time. It's just a little more specific. I run out of space again here. Calendar app, just simple, trying to keep track of all the evaluations, phone calls, and whatnot they have to do. We'll probably import stuff from Outlook if I can, because that's the primary email that most counties in New York use. Inbox, this is where transferred cases and documents will come to, separate from the notification section, because you will need to confirm, for instance, a new document came in from one of the partnering agencies, because we don't make our own. A lot of times we don't make our own paperwork. It's made from like the agencies, like the speech therapist will make a report and they have to send it to us. So you just click merge into the record that you want to merge it to. And then the report screen, I'm sorry, the new case screen. This will have, all the child demographics and create that new file. Same with this. There's a lot more. I just grabbed a bunch of paperwork from our blank documents at work today to try and go off of. A lot of it's form creation at this point.
Yeah, so I would say that you're definitely on the right track. I like to see how, you've got almost all of your screens thought through. I would say focus in a little bit more on that home screen, right? Of like, what are all the different fields that are going to be in the once you open the case file, right? What shows up in each one of those modals? That will be a good thing to kind of think through. And then the other thing I would say is, you're definitely going to run into some MVP here, and some scope creep, right? So I think the calendar is a great idea. No one's arguing that, a calendar wouldn't be a great idea. But now you're running into, hey, is that data coming all through the interface? Is that being integrated, like you mentioned, like with an Outlook calendar? How does that two-way sync work? And, a calendar app could almost be a Capstone on its own. So I would say, there might be some features here where you can say, hey, this is where I'm hoping to be in 5 months from now at graduation. And then here are all of the features that I want to work on, right? I think the calendar and inbox are probably the two easiest to go, hey, maybe we can avoid this for now, and then say this is coming down the road. But I think that this is a great capstone, obviously something you're very passionate about. And something that it's clear that you've thought it through. So you are totally on track for the next steps, which is time to dive in and start building it, right? Fire up a HTML folder if you haven't already, get Bootstrap installed, get your login page done, start doing the layout for your dashboard, right? Using the grid system, getting the task list showing, all of that stuff. And then the other thing I will say is don't get tripped up on trying to get real data in it, because obviously we still have to learn the database and how to save the information and all of that stuff. So just start going with a couple of fake case files, and just know that all of the data there is going to be placeholder, right? But all of that
Right.
placeholder data can actually get you set up very well for, well, how do I edit this? How do I log at another interaction or eval with the person? You know, what is in those expanding sections, getting the modals working, all of that stuff. Is what's coming down the pipeline, but really, really good spot to be in, and excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course. Who would like to go next?
Well, I guess I'll take a shot at it.
Go for it.
All right. I have to share my other computer since I did most of the work on there. Minimize that. Oops, hang on, give me 1 second. There it is.
Yep. You're good.
Okay. Okay. So, the website I wanted to do is something a website is about a game I'm playing and I play passionately. It's called Ultimate Mortal Kombat Deception. So I pretty much want people to know, because not a lot of people are aware about this mod. And with the mod creator permission, actually he encouraged me to like make it like make like the website for fun, because I mean, I guess he did his, but he didn't really work on it a little bit. So I was like, you know what? Since I love playing this game a lot, I guess I'll make a website of it. So the first thing, this is like the home. This is where you like pop up at. It will tell you the latest version of the mod, which is version 6. Um, this right here will take you to his GitHub to actually download like the mod, and this would and this don't mind the buttons and the colors, because this is not like, this is still more like a design phase, but this button will take you to see the fighters of who's in the game and not, and this is where it takes you to like a list where it tells like which characters is more better, which characters is more worse and stuff, and something like that. And I put like little disclaimer at the bottom, because I don't want people like mistaking it, like, you know, me being directly involved in the project. So so when you click on fighters, it brings you to this little menu here, and these are all gonna be like little like buttons and stuff that you click on like each of the fighters that's in the game. I also want to put like a little line here with these two characters, because they also appear in like different versions. There's like different versions of the game. So like these two characters I have is also like in another version, while these 4 are not. So let's say, oh, well, I want to see what this guy about. So you click on this guy, it takes you to the character's actual like bio and stuff. This would tell you like, are they like playable of like the version that you're playing, like the PS2, Xbox version? Yeah, he's playable. GameCube, yes. So, and I also want like the user. You notice like he's like transparent in the back, because I want the user where they click on like him, they'll like switch between like his alternative costume and his primary. So I kind of want that to happen. And this gives like a bit of description about the character. And this is like, well, I guess they ending, but I kind of want this to make more like a YouTube video. I was gonna like record like just ending on like an actual video. So I don't know if I might need an API on that or not, but I'm still, this is still something working for now. And then we keep scroll like a little bit more at the bottom, you see his like his combos on his move list and stuff. Like, so you like, you know, like with the numbers and stuff. In fighting games, like numbers is just a sign, like it's more like, oh well, this button is like attack 1, this button is attack 2, attack 3, attack 4 and stuff. So like I try to give like that the viewer, the user, a little bit of information about his combos, because you also have like hidden combo that's also not specified in the game itself, even when you like go to the move list and not specified. And I also want a YouTube video showcasing that, like that combo and stuff. I didn't really got I didn't really finish much down here because I had enough time. But
All right, I'm gonna just cut you off because for the sake of time, I'm gonna try and keep everyone to like no more than 10 minutes, but
okay.
try and shoot for 5, just because we got a lot of students to go through. So also you're definitely on the right track. It may not initially show as full stack as you're thinking. But there's a lot of database information in here, right? And so what
Mhm.
we'll be learning how to do is actually make one fighter page, but based off of what fighter you're on, it will pull in all of that information from the database and basically load that dynamically so that you'll be able to build one fighter page and have it work for all of the different fighters based off of what's in the database. So
Yeah.
that is I think you're on the right track here. I would encourage you to think about the interactivity of it a little bit more because this alone is full stack because it is reading from a database. But I would encourage you to think through the update and deletion part of it as well. Of okay, do I want to make some admin interface that makes it easier for me to update this information? Right?
Mhm.
Because working directly in the database is going to be pretty tedious. So you may decide, hey, maybe I want an admin side of things where I can add a character or go, oh, there's a typo on this character's name. I can go in and instead of having to go right to the database, I can actually build an admin interface that will let me go edit it. Or
Yeah.
you may say, hey, this data is so static, that's not important. Maybe what I want instead is a comment section, right? That allows users to go in and be like, oh man, I use this move all the time. Or, oh,
Oh.
just so you know, that's not actually playable on this platform. Or, so I want to push you a little bit on thinking about the web app side of it a little bit more in terms
Oh.
of the user interactivity, either as an admin or as an end user. Either
Mhm.
one is fine. But I think that this is very database heavy, which is a good sign for a full stack project. The only thing that I would ask is this a copyright concern?
No.
Because no, okay,
No.
because normally artwork from video games is owned by the publisher of the game.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
would just say
Yeah. Yeah. I'm definitely aware of that. I made sure to do my research before doing all this.
yeah, so just keep that in mind. And at the end of the day, you know, not an attorney, not legal advice, but oftentimes if a video game creator does go after you, you get something called a cease and desist order, which basically means you got to take this site off the internet. But
Mhm.
that doesn't mean that you can't use it as a portfolio piece or show it to potential employers or stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of them, there's some wiggle room of like, hey, you're not trying to make money off of this, and this is all a fan club. So sometimes you get some wiggle room in there, but just something to keep in the back of your mind. But I think it's a great project. I think you've thought it through. Just think through the interactivity side of things a little bit more,
Okay.
and then you'll be good to go.
Okay. I got a question before you move on.
Yeah.
You don't think this is kind of a little ambitious? Because I wanted to add like a music player that plays like the music in there too. Is that a little ambitious or?
No, I think that is that's totally doable. Again, make sure that there's not any copyright concerns about like playing the MP3s. But other than that, no, I think a music player is definitely something that you can tackle. Maybe not as a thing that you absolutely have to do, but as something that's borderlining on that MVP of hey, if I have some additional time, this would make it more interactive.
Appreciate
I
it.
will say that music player will be much easier to build once we get to React. So I would hold off on trying to make it work until we get into the React code. But
Mhm.
you're definitely in a spot where you can start building out some of this HTML and CSS and starting to get it going. Maybe not necessarily for every single player or every single fighter, but 2 or 3 of them just to make sure that you're comfortable with the page and getting the homepage built and all of that stuff.
Okay.
All right. 2 down. Who's next?
I guess I give it a try.
Go for it.
Whew. All right, here. Can you guys see?
Yes.
All right. My ideal is to make like a travel website. And with it, you could do like a blog and review on it. Like you have like your itineraries. This right here is just a basic sign-on page. It's like what I have in mind is like let me see here. It's probably on my because I put all like my outline in my GitHub for some reason, just so I can have like a good idea for like certain ideas that I want on it. Can I open that? Let's see. Because I want the website to kind of be like use like motion like I can't even explain it. Like you see how the world view is back here? I want it to be like motion, like have motion in the back. If I'm able to do that. I know it's a little ambitious probably, but I wanted to add it in there. So once you create your if you have sign on, you can sign on to your account. If you don't have an account, you could create an account, easy sign up. Then boom, name, email, password, create account. Then you come here and it has like you click on itineraries and then it just has like your trip things to do, but like previous trips for your history. Like here it has like a flight number, departure, like supposed to have the departure and arrival time, the destination, the date that was going to happen. This is a picture of Los Angeles from Unsplash. And this right here is a picture of Miami from Unsplash, just for 2 trips, 2 things to do. I mean, 2 places that you're going. And then here, these are the things to do, like Los Angeles, California, you're gonna go skydiving at iSky America. And then the second thing you're gonna do probably the following day is bungee jumping. It's pretty fun things. It's all gonna be built by I wanna try to install use AI to like build the trip ideas for you so you don't have to like it just gives you like a whole list of things to do, like a good club to go to, like just from pulling like everywhere that's like a lot of reviews, stuff like that. And then this right here is just like blog and review. I know I posted the same thing twice. I wasn't moving pretty quickly. So this right here is where you could just blog and then like people could go to the blog and see what you have to say about the place that you've been, where your experience, what restaurants you ate at, different things like that. You could give like a review on that restaurant or that club or that place that you went,
So
just
I think it's a great idea. The only thing that I would encourage you to work on the mockups a little bit more is the interactivity of it, right? So, okay, great. We want to be able to show all the flight details, but there's no button to say add new trip. Okay, when they click on add new trip, what are the form fields that show up? Okay, now that I've hit the save button, now I get that first screen that you have, right, with all of the details on it.
gotcha.
Same thing for the things to do, right? When you go into your things to do, how do I add a new thing to do? How do I see a list of all of the things that are being suggested to me? Where's the button that I click on to actually add that to like what I want to save or add this to the itinerary? When I do add that to the itinerary, can I pick a certain date to save it in as, right? So those are the things that I want to see you think through a little bit more on a mock-up or a wireframe. Because right now, all of the information that's getting displayed is great, and we can see the usefulness of the app. But right now, if you built that right now, I would be like, but there's no way for me to use this, right? This is just information that's on the page. So we need to think through kind of the form fields a little bit more, and then the buttons as well as, all right, what, can I click on this button to save this thing to do? Or, hey, when I click on add new trip, what does that screen look like to allow me to upload all of that information? And so you're on the right track. And I think that this is a great website, but we need to be thinking a little bit more web app in order to make sure that we're on the right track. And I would encourage you to do that in your mockups before you dive into the code, because what you may end up finding is, oh, there's a lot more screens that I need to build for adding a new trip, for saving an item to do, for all of that stuff. The good news is that AI wise, we can definitely integrate. OpenAI has a great API, and so does Google. I don't believe the OpenAI, I don't think either API is free, but it is a relatively low cost that could be used for sourcing all of the things to do. So that is definitely something that we can get with after we get into APIs. But I would say before you dive into the code, just think through the, hey, where's the new trip button go? When I click on the new trip button, what page does that take me to? What needs to be on that page in order, for me to start coding it out? But I think you're on a really good track, and excited to see you see the progress.
Yeah, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. No bad capstone ideas so far. Who would like to go next?
I'll
Austin?
go.
Oh, go ahead.
Let me share screen. So I am a avid player of Dungeons and Dragons, and one of the things I realized is like the most difficult part of it. If you play specifically a wizard, it's keeping track of all the spells because they can learn the most. So I decided to make a sort of spell tracking app. So if we go in here real quick, you start, you make an account, and then within the account you can make multiple characters. Let's see. Where's the, sorry about this. So you would add a character, name, level, all the information you want. You would add the character, and then from that page, you'd go to your character sheet. And my thought was I found an API that takes all of the information from the source books for Dungeons and Dragons. And I was gonna try to see if I could find a way to import that or use that to bring the info into here. So based on whatever level your character is, it'll show you a list of the spells you can know that you can choose from, and then save them to that like specific character sheet. Also with creating characters, there's a lot of people that like to make up their own spells and things like that. So I have a spell editing and adding page. You can go through all the specifics of each spell, or if you just want to look up what a spell does. And then I have the account management page as well. Name, email, password. Yeah, I changed my mind at the last minute to this, so it's kind of bare bones right now.
No, I'm liking it. So kind of the same feedback that I had for Hazad, which was, think through the fields a little bit more. And so I think that, it's a little bit more clear with the character name, character level, race, age, height, right? Like, oh, those are going to be text inputs that show up,
Yeah.
to the right of it or underneath it, and it'll allow you to type that in. But I think that you're on the right track here. And I think it's pretty apparent of like, okay, when you click add a character, here's the page that you're going to go to. The only thing I would encourage you to think through a little bit more is what happens when they want to edit something, right? So if they add a spell, type everything in, save it, and then they go back into it 2 weeks from now and go, oh, this is spell level 4, not spell level 3. How do I go in to modify that? So you may want to think through like the difference between excuse me, viewing a spell or a character versus editing the spell or character. And the good news is a lot of the forms that you use for creation can also be used for editing. But I think that this is a good idea. It's got a healthy amount of database behind it. You know, you've got your account and saving information in. So I think that you're really on a good track here. And I would encourage you, you're definitely at that threshold where you can start diving into the HTML and CSS side of starting to build some of these pages out.
Thank you.
Of course. Whoever said they wanted to go next in the chat, go for it. Just taking some notes here.
All right, give me 1 second. I'm just trying to get this stuff up. Share. Okay. Am I sharing? I can't tell.
You are, yes, you're good to go.
Okay. So I originally was gonna try and make an app. I just haven't changed my my view just yet because I had set it up to work on like iPhone 14 and 15 Pro. So it would originally look something like, where is it right here? The present. All right, so my app or my website would be about Carnival. I attend a lot of carnivals in my time, Trinidad, Miami, Caribana, St. Lucia, Jamaica. And there's always a question about where to stay, what band play for, how do they get a costume, what fates, which is parties to play for. So like right now, just to show you, like I'm on Facebook and this is for Miami and there's like, hey, where's everyone staying? I know I'm so early, any hotel recommendations. So it is something that people are looking for, especially first timers. So it's pretty much like a travel app. So this will be the landing page. Like when you first come in, you'll be able to sign in and log in, sign up or log in. And then once you do that, you can start building your own itinerary of your trip. So locations would be like Airbnb and hotels. Location would be the locations of where you're going. So you would select the country, which would be on the next page. So locations would be like Trinidad, Jamaica, St. Lucia, Caribana, Miami. Once you select those, you'll get more information. Let's say I selected St. Lucia, and it would take me to some information about St. Lucia, the dates of the carnival. And then you can also see our recommendations. Sorry, my dog is about to cut up. But pretty much, I'm not done. I still got a lot still I want to add, but I was trying to create a user, like a, hold on, let me grab her. Olive, come here. I was trying to create a user profile, so that this will be like where your profile picture is at, and then you can add like your, add things to your trip. So like if you were wanted accommodations, you can add it there and all the information to be there for. I will also like it to work offline. Maybe even be able for you to print it out and have it, all your information there. Because when you go through customs, they ask for all this stuff, like where you're staying, the address, the phone number. They might even ask you a weird question if you're going through Carnival, like what band are you playing with? So I did want to also have it linked to bands. So this is one of the bands. Like when you go here, you'll be able to purchase your costume. If it goes. And then you just select it. And the people who are new, they don't really know this. Like you got to find a band and you got to, purchase the costume through them. And that's how you get in the parade. So like this costume, the body wear is $850. And then you have to buy your backpack, which is the feathers and things like that. So a lot of people just don't know this because they never played Carnival. So I just wanted a place where newbies can kind of like get the information they're looking for if they're not finding it online or getting it from other veterans who have played Carnival. And that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Love the idea. I'm very excited to see everything that you already touched upon of building out the profile and the itinerary and you know, the appy side of the website. And I two things that I wanted to point out. One, it is totally fine to link to external sites in your capstones, right? Not just for you, but for everyone, because there is a lot of great information out there. So I don't want you to feel like you're necessarily cheating if you're linking to an external site. That is totally fine. And then the other part of it was, you know, the mobile app side of things. And again, this goes for everyone, not just you, but we encourage you to start with a mobile responsive web app. We can always kind of transition you over towards the end of the capstone into a framework called React Native. However, building a native app is kind of a step beyond what we cover in the curriculum. So if you build a mobile responsive website, oftentimes it is the next natural step to go into a React Native app and be able to basically reuse your interface and all of your interactivity in addition to your database and your APIs and all of that stuff over in the mobile app. But the good news is web apps mobile web apps have gotten so good in recent years that it will actually support something like you know, being able to access that information offline. Even though it's a web app, you can actually make an offline web app that once you load it for the first time, all that information stays in there. So you're definitely on the right track. Love to see where you're at. Just that next step of how do I make it a little bit more interactive? How do I save a recommendation to my itinerary? How do I, you know, have a form that allows me to not only, you know, pick the destination, but then also say, hey, I'm going to load up my Airbnb information or, you know, my accommodation information or wherever you're staying. So would love to see just a couple more screens on that. But I think that this is a really, really good starting point, and it's a really clear idea, right? Of when you see this, you understand it. So it's just those last couple web app things, and then you will be good to go. Very, very nice work.
Thank you. I'm sorry I had put you on mute because my dog was cutting up.
No problem. Who is next?
It's me. I'm sorry if my connection is crap. My wireframe is very simple. So I'm doing a tracker for Stardew Valley because I love that game. So far I have the nav bar here. Each of these would be selectable, and it would open up a new page where you could do drop-down menus for some things. This is I'm starting out relatively simple, just with the community center, produce shipped, things like that. I'm hoping to eventually build it up into a perfection tracker. I've gotten some input from people online to add a to-do list and things like that. And that's all I have for now.
Awesome. So definitely on the right track, right? And we're starting to see some themes of the different pieces of the database and how we need to save things in. I think that I'd like to see kind of a couple more screens wireframed out, because while I understand the goal of the app, right now I can't look at these wireframes and go, oh, I totally understand. I would just click this and this and this, and that's, you know, and I would get this thing at the end. So I would encourage you to do a couple more. I'm not bad mouthing paper wireframes at all. I normally do my wireframes on paper, right? So not saying that it needs to be more of a mock-up, but just think through, hey, what's the homepage look like, right? Once they're off the homepage, what do they click on? I know you've got like your welcome up at the top in your nav bar with the login. That's a good starting point. But you know, I'm not quite sure like how the four boxes underneath it. I don't know if those are those links that go to different pages, or they
Yeah, so like this first one would be this one over here would be community center. That's
okay.
why it's kind of a darker box. And then if you clicked produce shipped, it would bring you to this page.
Okay. And then for something like the produce shipped page, is the idea there to show quantity?
No, for the tracker, you have to ship every item.
Okay.
So you would click it and it would show that you had clicked it and shipped it already.
Okay. Okay. So maybe you are closer than I thought. So the only other thing I would ask is like what are the what's the logistics around resetting? Does that happen every 24 hours? Does that not happen at all?
Um, I'm not sure.
So that would be my only right, like at and that part of this is just not me knowing the game. So part of my
That's
naivety here, but like, once you ship all of your produce, are you done? Do you win the game, or is there some kind
kind of,
of
yeah. You've gotten that achievement once you've done it.
okay, so maybe that's think through that a little bit of like you know is there a place that I can see a list of my achievements? Is that something that you would want to track in your app versus the game?
Mm,
Is it something that maybe you need some kind of picker, right? Where you're saying hey, this is the achievement I'm currently working towards, and that picking that achievement is what's going to load up the produce shipped.
okay, I like that.
I don't know. I don't know. Again, don't know the game, so I can't definitively say like this is exactly what you need. But kind of just thinking through a little bit of do I expect my user to type in all 20 things that they have to ship on this achievement, or is it something that they can pick out of a list of achievements and it will preload in the what produce has been shipped? Or again, everything I'm saying with a grain of salt because I don't actually play the game. But just thinking through kind of the editing of the data or the loading of the data, because the tracking of, hey, I shipped this, I turn this from red to green, super easy, right? But then thinking through but do we expect the user to type in everything that they're expected to ship? Or is there some kind of way to preload that? Or is there even some kind of API that I can use that may already have that data and I can use that data to pull it in? So all things to throw out there. But I think that, as you dive into it a little bit more, even though it seems simple, it actually has some more advanced database pieces to it that I think will make it a good capstone.
That's what I'm hoping for.
Awesome. Yeah, I would say you're definitely at the point. Start thinking about data sources, start thinking about whether there's an API you can use or whether there's data that you need to build out on your side. But you're at the point where you can definitely start on the HTML and starting to make this actually feel like a website. Uh Cornelius, I think you're up next.
Yes, hello. Sorry, I was a little late.
All good.
All right, can you see my screen?
I can.
All right, so for my capstone, I was focusing more on the aspect of like have we in up the what I know is in Syracuse is there's a lot of creative minds, those that was trying to get into the filming industry, and trying to be part of that type of lifestyle. So I created this, my capstone is going to be focusing on that, and call it Creative Central. So this is the home page. I know it's a little bare bones, but once you log into, or not log into, but once you reach the site, there will be like a little welcome message, and then you can pan through it like the next page. Like if you click next, will take you to like the recent posts from community or forums, or just another page in the website where it's from the owner, which is me, pretty much telling the people that's logging in, just like, hey, here's this update coming to the webpage. So this is the profile icon. I wish I did a little bit more time on this, but if you click on this icon, there I was supposed to put a slide where you fill in the fields to create your account, put your picture, your username, and so on and so forth. And then once you do that, your profile will show up here, like you know, the name, your online status will tell you when the member, when were you a member, your profile picture, and then you can edit it and you can sign out. And then once that's established, then you can either click, I'm mostly focused on this part, the create event. So once you create an event, once you click on community or create events, what I'm going to get to, once you go here on community, it brings you to here. This will be Google Maps with icons on here that show you what events are happening at those locations where the icons are located. So here's the events listed associated with those right here. And if you can do multitude of things on here in the community page. So we'll go into, if you wanted to click on create your event, it brings you to this page. You can put the event name, you put the location like Syracuse or Buffalo, you put the address, you put the time start, you put the icon you want to associate with this event. And then once you click finish, this will prompt you with, hey, congratulations, you created an event. And then this will pend, this little number will pend from 0 to 1, showing how many events you are hosting right here. And then if you wanted to attend an event, sorry, it's everywhere, or click on an event that's listed, it will take out the other icons and it will just mostly focus on the one event you clicked on that you're interested in. It will tell you the person that's hosting it, the address, the date, the time, the event type, and the available seating. That I'm going to get in, that's something I'm going to focus on later. But when you join it, whoops, that's not it. It will do another congratulations, but you are attending so-and-so, this user's event, and then the event attending will also be incremented to show that you have an event that you attended in your list. But yeah, that is the capstone idea I have.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So very, very good. I would say that this is the perfect kind of MVP. I would caution you with both Google Maps and the address autocomplete API. They are very powerful, but they take up a lot more time and are a lot more finicky than you may expect to get them going. However, because they are so critical to the idea of your app, I would definitely encourage you to use them. But I would say towards the end of the JavaScript module, as we get into the maybe more towards the end of the API module, start wading into that documentation, reading about how to get the map set up on the page. You know, it's one thing to have a field where they just type in the location. It's another to go, wait, we actually verified that location and know where that location is, so we can put the right spot on the map for that event, right?
Yes.
But I think your user interface is really clear. You've thought through all of the critical screens for creating an event, for joining an event, for seeing all of your events listed, for thinking through login and you know, having an account created, in terms of managing events that you've created versus events that you're attending. So really, really great that you thought through all of that functionality. I think it's a really clear app idea. So I would say, you know, you're definitely ready to dive right into that HTML and start actually building out those pages.
Thank you.
And in the meantime, you may want to use just a placeholder for your map. But the good news is that I do have a fair amount of experience with Google Maps and getting the autocomplete API to work along with the map location. So you are definitely in good hands in terms of having experience with that third-party API.
Thank you.
All right, as I'm taking notes, whoever's next, go for it.
I guess I'll go.
Sure. And then I think it's Tiffany after that.
Oh,
All right, so
You're seeing my screen right now? Oh, you would need
Uh,
just
Let's have
You want me to
I
start?
could go second.
Yeah, just because Tiffany's sharing her screen, go ahead and do that, and then Mo, we'll come back to you.
Sorry.
Cool.
Actually, I'm doing is like some kind of a community app, web app. So basically, my idea is that you can share, you can find people who have to use same interesting, and you can hang out each other together. That's my basic idea for that. And for this one is my homepage. So you can see here is like the use of photo in here, and then bios and what kind of interesting is, and what the curious about, and the current event is outgoing, and you can if you want, they can go all out to see other place. Not really finished yet. So so actually is like how it's everything is like when they can communicate with each other, that's a community app in here, and then you also can share the where the location is, and find what's interesting going on in the world, and also like a calendar, like say you main goal is, and then you try to hack out someone, is like you like you can find out someone and then make a calendar on that, and then make a schedule meeting for each other. And I also create this one, sign in. So you can just log in and then continue, and then log out, and then enter the code in here, and enter your first name and information, all that, and then okay, continue, and the location for that. I also have the locations and the interesting and the curious about, such as set all the background information. Then you can go all around here to find out the people have shared the same really interesting for you. That's it.
Awesome. So I would encourage you to think about MVP as much as possible. Like this last flow that you just went through, I think
Yep.
is a really good thing in terms of saying, all right, minimum viable product. I can set up my profile. I can load some information into it. I can see other people's profiles and their goals. And then maybe one more screen on this, right, which is what happens when I click on that profile. And I know you had that on another screen as well, but you know, like what are the details about this profile? I would be careful about getting over ambitious, but at the same time, if you want to have other sections of the site, like messaging is a good one to cluster into. Hey, if I have time, messaging makes a lot of sense. I need to, you know, build that out. And then same goes for like the calendar side of things of, hey, if I want to date my goals a little bit more and be able to see them in a calendar view, that is definitely something that we can do. But I would say try and think about this as like your high level pieces, right? Of saying, hey, what are the core functionality pieces of the site? Creating a profile, viewing a profile, being able to load interests in, editing a profile, and then the calendar and messaging, right? So if you kind of break those up into subcategories, it may make the app feel a little bit more manageable. But we see the intent, we kind of see how everything is flowing through it. I would just say, you know, make sure that you're staying on top of project management in terms of you know, trying not to have too much on your plate and say, hey, messaging's definitely something I can do, but you know, maybe not for launch, or the calendar and scheduling, something I can do, but maybe not for launch. And then as you start building out those screens, if you find that you're making more progress than you thought, you can always bring those additional features in. But love the idea. I think that the UI is really pretty. I think that you did a great job of thinking through the account creation, right? Which is depending on the project, either something really quick and easy to do of, hey, just sign in, or it can be much more intense of, hey, you got to build out your whole profile. So love the fact that you thought through all the different form fields, breaking it up onto different screens. Really think that you thought a lot through there. And I'm excited to see you build it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Nice work. Mo, you want to slide in and then we'll go back to the order in the chat.
Oh, I didn't even know the whole list.
You're fine, just go for it.
All right. All right. So I didn't. We've spoken at a private meeting about my project, man. I didn't know exactly how to wireframe what I'm trying to do because it's a 3D project. But I did kind of create the bones of what I want to do. So the website I got my idea from the website called 3.js, which is pretty much a 3D rendered project. So I'm gonna make a structure like a 3D structured building. So I just took a random background for a cityscape for effect, so people can get the idea what I'm actually gonna do. But the idea would be a 3D storefront. So the storefront would look similar to this. Would be a building with 4 sides, 2 big windows, 1 window, and a sign on top. We'll have an enter button, and once you hit that enter button, this is where most of the stuff will be. Like, it's kind of hard to figure out how to render that stuff in the manner that I wanted to, but I did want to get the layout of what I wanted to do. So it will be 2 interactive outside the exterior of the building, and hit the enter button and go into the interior of the building. On the interior building, you'll see a few 3D rendered things similar to this. I found this picture off of unsplash.com. You'll see mainly a few pieces of artwork. In my version, you'll see like a wardrobe with like maybe 3 or 4 shirts hanging. This will be 3D rendered in a music player. Those things will lead to links that pop up on separate windows with actual projects or screenshots of those projects, as well as a music player that integrates music of playlists of a choice that I or somebody I know created. And that would be the kind of just the project. So the project is supposed to be a portfolio, just a lot more interactive and kind of creative, like as far as 3D is shown, like what I could do and work. I didn't know how to display that kind of yet, as of yet, from what I'm doing, because I haven't started an actual 3D building process. I've installed the software that's needed and things like that, but I haven't started actually building it because I want to get a gist of what I want it to look like. So this is what I have so far, which the next time will be a lot more.
Awesome. I would encourage you to kind of think through the database or the full stack nature of it, right? So maybe some kind of admin page that allows you to like update the items on the site without necessarily having to like go back into the 3D animation and hard code those items in, if that makes sense at all. And then you could also build out that admin side of like, hey, I know that there are always 3 items that show once the 3D render has like, turned to that side of the building, or however you're gonna, I don't want to just say animate it because I know that's more than animation, but so having that notion of there is still some database here, and there's some way for me to update that database without having to go into the 3D code, I think is going to be, I don't want to say the loophole of to make this a full stack project, but I think will ultimately for the long term also make it more updatable, right? Because you're going to look at this and be like, oh, I want to change this out, I want to put something new in, but I don't want to necessarily have to dive back into all of that code and find out where that exact product is. So I would say, just think through an admin interface for updating the items in each particular scene, I'm going to say, but I don't really know if it's called that. Did you want to show just so everyone has a concept of what site you were basing it off of?
Yes, I was going to do that. So all right. Let me share this. So this is more or less of what, if everybody can see that, of what I'm kind of going for. So mine won't be a computer site specifically or a computer, but this is the interactive portfolio. This guy built a game on his. So my building will be a 3D structured building that you can click the space bar in and then enter that building, and then that one room will be fully interactive. There's another one I found on her that I didn't want to take too much time looking for, the one that was a lot more like mine, but this is similar to what I'm talking about, kind of built. And so you can see like this guy kind of went a lot more into detail, so I added plugs and things of that nature. But that's what I'm looking for.
And so that not only does that give us a better context, but hopefully it opens other people up to thinking about like, hey, you can use any framework you want, right? You can use any API that you want. Yes, we're going to encourage you to build it in React, but that's not a super hard requirement. If you're like, man, I know Vue and I love Vue and I want to build it in Vue, okay, that's fine with us, right? The only real hard requirements is we got to have full stack, we got to have an API that you've built, and we got to have a database behind it. Outside of that, you can make it whatever framework you want, any really anything. The whole point here is we say, hey, we built something full stack. That's all that really matters. So really great idea. I think it will allow you to tap into your artistic side, which is really important, that you like the capstone that you're building. That may sound obvious, but I think you got a lot of potential there. I would say, just wireframe out a little bit more what that admin side looks like. And then you can really dive into the framework of the 3D artwork and all of that fun stuff coming up.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Who is next? Harley? Maybe?
I'll go.
Okay.
I'm just gonna warn you, even my wireframe has a long way to go. It's one step, like, notes on a napkin. So just keep that in mind.
I got notes on post-it notes and all things around me, so.
So, basically my idea is to kind of have a centralized location for people that have felony convictions that need help with all kinds of things. Obviously, housing is an issue, jobs, schools, other resources. The two main things I want to focus on are housing and jobs. And so I would have a login page, nav bar, and somehow have a way to go through listings of places that accept people with a criminal background, and then have a way to keep track of those applications for housing and jobs. And then all the other things would kind of be maybe eventually. So a lot of it's going to be kind of links to other places other than the housing and the jobs. It's kind of my idea. It has a long way to go. But that's my idea.
Yeah, so I don't think you're as far off as you think you are. I think that you probably only need maybe four screens, at least to reach that ready to code phase, right? So I think that you need a housing display page, right, that shows all the different housing that has been posted, and that is going to get you to think about like, hey, obviously location, a picture of the house, maybe number of bedrooms, rent amount, right? Start thinking about the fields that you want. And then the follow up to that is, okay, well, if we can view all the housing, we also need a way to add new housing to the website. And so I need another page wireframed out for, again, all of those fields that are displaying on the list page or the view all page or the whatever you want to call it. So, and then you just repeat that for jobs, right? Hey, the jobs page may look a little different. Maybe I do housing as a grid of like 3 housing things across, but jobs may make more sense to post more in a table format, or, kind of think through how you want that to display. And then the fourth screen is, well, I need to add new jobs, right? Where I can, have a form that takes title and position and salary and has a notes field and maybe a link to the job description or something like that. So I don't think you're as far off as you think you are, but just start thinking through, all right, let me draw out what are the 5 fields that I need to add for housing, and then what does that look like when I'm viewing all of them. And I think that will kind of gain you enough momentum to go, all right, now I can start coding this out. And for all the other sections, that's something that you may want to link for now. And then down the road, you may go, oh, I may want a details page about that. And then I can link out from there. And that's totally fine. But I think you'll find that there is enough on the database side for just housing and jobs. And again, it's MVP. If I had a criminal history, would this site be helpful for me? Absolutely, right? And that's all that matters is, yeah, this is a viable product. I could see myself using it with just the housing alone, let alone housing and jobs. So I wouldn't discredit yourself too much. I would say just a couple quick screens to draw out there, and paper or whiteboard is totally fine. But once you get that done, I think you'll be at the point of ready to dive into HTML.
To be fair, I am in the middle of moving, so I have a lot going on. Not making excuses, but I do have some great ideas for this right now. Like I said, it's just very, very basic on paper.
Totally fine. And so and this is a note for everyone of when I give you feedback, right? It's just like any other assignment in Canvas. You can resubmit the assignment. And once you do, I'm able to bump your grade back up there. So we aren't expecting the whole site to be built out here for this. But if you do get a lower grade, I don't want you to panic. I want you just to read the feedback and go, okay, I got to get these next couple things done. And if I do that in the next week or two, resubmit it, I'll get full credit for this and be back up to where I'm at. So don't want anyone to panic over the grades. And if you need help with that, right? If you're like, I just don't know how to do that, scheduling a one-on-one with me is a great thing to do. Or go to someone else and you can say, hey, you did a really good job on this. Can you give me a little help? And I think you'll find your fellow students will be able to help out. With that said, if you have not opened the chat, I encourage you to do that and scroll back through because people have been throwing some really great comments and feedback in there. It is particularly active tonight, and that is a great, great thing. Let's see. I think we're nearing the end of how many people we have to go.
I'm next, but it's 5 minutes before break, so.
Let's do this. Let's take attendance now, go on break, and then you will be up right after break. The secret word tonight is wireframe. Wireframe is the secret word for tonight. You can go on break, be back at 7:20. Little earlier on break because we're going on break a couple minutes early. So be back
I almost forgot what the
7:20.
attendance form was.
Attendance form is in Canvas.
I was like, Nathan didn't have us use it the entire week.
So to be fair, he filled out the spreadsheet for everyone based off of the Git commits you guys were doing. So we did track attendance last week. We do know who was here and who wasn't here. He just kind of filled it out for you guys. Which I probably could do, but I'm lazy and just make you guys fill it out directly.
Oh no, he had us put all that information in the spreadsheet.
All right. Who was up? Is it who wanted to go next?
Then Deandra wanted to go next.
You there? I saw you on camera for a second after break. Is there anyone else who needs to go?
Yeah, I could probably go next. Mine should be brief. All right.
And then Michael will come to you next.
Nope, that's not the right one. Ooh. Okay, let me see if I have my Figma up. Okay. Can you see my screen okay?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, so I had two similar but different ideas in the beginning, and I was not really quite sure where to go with it. I was able to finally figure out that I'll be going with the latter idea that I discussed with Max during a meeting today. But the first idea that I had was a website design for a company that I help run and manage with my husband. It's a transportation logistics company based in Syracuse, New York. Initially, this is the main page. Very straightforward, nothing really much going on with it. A user would select the type of service they need. They'll click on it. They would either book a trip or get a quote. And I only have 2 pages because, again, this was very initial idea that I was working on. In the next page, they will be able to enter the trip details, including the name, phone numbers, the type of vehicle they needed, the date they needed, and stuff like that, and either book a trip or get a quote, and we will be reaching back out to them and finalizing the booking. Now, the actual idea that I ended up finally going with is creating a web app that is also mobile responsive and user-friendly and mostly used within, the Uconnect transportation field. So it's not open to the public or anything. And it will be utilized by the admins, the drivers, as well as the riders. The main page would pretty much have like a login, which would look the same across if, an admin was logging in, if a driver was logging in, or if a rider was logging in to get their QR codes to get sort of a bus pass type thing to get scanned in before riding the shuttle van. So very, very straightforward. It's very much in its initial stages, but I'm really excited about the second idea. I might still work on this simple website for Uconnect Transportation and see where it takes me. But if not, then I'll just focus on the second one for the minimum viable project and go from there. But yeah, my wireframe for that one is not started because I just decided today that I'll pursue that one. So yeah.
Do you want to share that basic idea?
Yes. So the basic idea is pretty much a mobile responsive app that is designed for the administrator, the administrating team, the drivers, as well as the riders. On the admin side, they'll be able to have their own dashboard after they log in, where they're able to see the number of drivers they have available, the fixed routes that they have assigned to those drivers, and the number of riders they have assigned to that route. On the other hand, the drivers will be able to see the routes that they have available to them for the day. It might change, it might fluctuate depending on like what routes they're running and what day they're running, but that's what I'm kind of thinking about. For the riders though, I'm thinking maybe something as simple as like having a QR code. If they log in, they'll have their QR code they can download and show to the driver. If they don't have the QR code, have like a unique 6-digit identifying code they can give to the driver to get logged in and to be able to ride the shuttle van. So very basic idea. I'm not sure where I'm going with it, but I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it gives some insight into the data of I think when you think of logistics, it's very easy to get in the weeds. But when you start collecting more of that data and you know how frequently people are riding or what utilization is and all of that kind of stuff, it can really increase the experience, right? If we think about well, New York City had yellow cabs for years. Why did Uber and Lyft get so popular? It's because it was convenient, right? And people didn't want to hail a taxi. They wanted to push a button on an app and have it show up. And so I think that there's a lot of technology that you can bring into the business there. So obviously some work to do on those wireframes. I know you just landed on the app idea today, but I think that The idea is there. Now it's just a matter of building out the wireframes to kind of think through and plan through the whole idea. And then you'll be in good shape.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Michael, do you want to go next? And then Deandra, or do you want to go? Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Can I go,
Go
Mike?
for it.
All right. So,
We did come back to you, but you were like 1 minute late from break.
I know, sorry, I gotta be quicker than that.
All good, all good. Go for it.
Okay. So, oh, the share screen thing is in my way. Okay, so I used a Jamboard to do my wireframe because I felt like I started Figma and I was like, it's too much. Like, I need
That
something
is
simple so I don't get
perfectly
lost in
all
the
right.
sauce. But okay, so this is like my brain dump right here. My web app is going to be like a maintenance and inventory log for people who have a lot of plants, whether it's in their house or they have like a garden or whatever. So the two main parts of my project is going to be the inventory, and that's where the users are going to access all of their plants, how many plants they have, where they're located, the type of plants, and I'm going to sort the plants using standard gardening categories that I don't know right now, but I will know. And I'm also going to have a link to a plant database that is going to help users identify plants, but this is not like a plant identification app where you use AI to take a picture or whatever. This is more of like a research app where they can use the information I provide them to narrow down what their plan is. And then the maintenance, you know what, let me just get into it because I'm talking. All right, so this is going to be the screen that users see after they log in. And up here's my nav bar where they can access their account, their inventories where all their plants are, the maintenance log where they log what they did with their plants, where they can add a plant, and where they can search for a plant in their database or their own inventory or using my plant encyclopedia. So after the nav bar is going to be the three main sections, which is their recently logged plants. So like if they can open it and just go back to what they were doing previously, it's right there. And then their next scheduled maintenance, so they know what's up. I'll probably do like more fields there, or like let them see how many things are upcoming, like let them change it instead of just two things that's upcoming Monday, Tuesday. And then the last part is the plant encyclopedia, where I'm gonna have a cool plant-like slogan that's gonna sound good and make them want to click it. And this is gonna be my opportunity to link an API to some other existing database of plants and stuff. So that's gonna be cool. Excuse me. So this screen is when a user clicks account, which used to be here, but now is the home button here. And this is they're gonna see them, probably not a picture, maybe some other symbol. And here's gonna be the settings, change your password, change your username, personal details. They can ask for help. Because I like when I don't know what's going on in the app and I can ask for help. Where they can report an issue for some reason, or they can alter settings like light or dark mode, the language, the font size, the sound. There may be some sound. I don't know. I'm just going off what I like to see when I go inside the settings on an app. And this is like a little screen of what's going to pop up after they click the word settings. And then next we have our inventory page. This is where all their plants is going to be, like I said. So this is like some sample plants, and this big name is going to be what they want to call it. And the little name is going to be like the exact scientific name for it that you'll see in like an encyclopedia. And this is going to be a location where they can find it. So like, oh, in the middle window in the third room. So like they know where they're finding plants, because that's a problem I have in my own house. We have a lot of plants and we don't know where to find them. But or we know where to find them, we just like, it just takes a long time because the information is not readily available for us. And then this screen here is going to be what pops up after they click. This is going to be like the plant detail page. And then in the quotes, I want to make it like a little user funny. Like I like medium light and humidity. That's like the care tips for the plant. And if they click that, it can go into depth, or maybe this would be like an infinite scroll of more care tips underneath. And tell me if I'm just rambling right now.
So
And then
let's
yeah.
jump to like the add a plant.
Oh, see, that's new. All right. So I did a one-on-one with Max and he told me to make this. So I made this. And so this is the section where you add a plant. And so this is a form that has multiple fields right now. I would like this to be an infinite scroll where it's like one field port like on the screen so it doesn't overwhelm the person. Like, oh my gosh, I gotta fill this in. Like your name, your plant. You can add your scientific name, but also this is another opportunity for my API. They can click a button and find the the plant encyclopedia name, hopefully, if I have that database. And where it is, and my drop down box is going to be like the type of pot it's in, because like that matters to like your plant health and stuff, what type of pots that they like. So there's going to be a drop down of the different type of pots they can be. And then also the soil type. This is new. I did a lot of research and I was like, oh, like there's types. So I figured that out, and I'm going to integrate that because people who are serious about plants are going to know that. So I want to add that. And then they could also add the last time they did any kind of maintenance, like water it, mist it, clip it, rotate it. Oh, and that's it.
Awesome. So I think we got the core functionality there, right? And I think it will be fun for you to figure out like how to link it into another plant database and have it so like they can type in a name and link it and then be able to maybe pull in some of that information from the API. So like if I add a plant and I'm like, oh, I have pothos, but I know nothing about them, I can hit like a autofill button and have
Oh
it like
yeah,
pull that data in of like, oh, these are impossible to kill, and that's probably why you have one. Kidding.
nice.
But just an idea there, but you can see yourself thinking through login credentials, storing the plant information, all the different fields that you may want to have, the display of that information. Right, we like to think about 4 operations in any full stack app, database driven app, which is CRUD, right? Create, read, update, delete. And so what you already have planned out is, all right, I have that create form and I have the read form where it's going to show all the information. You may want to think about, is there a remove button? Is there a, play the taps because I definitely killed this plant, remove from my
You
database.
smart.
But just something to think about. I swear I do have a green thumb. I am not a plant serial killer. I only do one a year usually. But just something to think about for that additional functionality. But I think you're at that point where you've got probably 90% of your app wireframed out that you need to. And so that's definitely a good threshold to go, all right, let's dive into the code and really start making this an actual app. But I think that is really good progress.
Thanks.
Excited to see it. I will say Jamboard is shutting down October 1st. And so there's a product called
RIP.
FigJam that is from Figma. I don't know if you get access to it with the student license. But there's also Lucid and Miro. So FigJam, Lucid, and Miro are the 3 that Google is like recommending people transition to. So just a couple things to suggest out there. I have found that the functionality of Jamboard is actually pretty close to Google Slides as well. So if you are in that Google space and you think Figma is a little overkill, FigJam, even though it's made by Figma, is entirely different, right? There's a big difference between what we call a whiteboarding app, which is, hey, we want to just get our ideas out of our head and just shapes into the computer, and then an actual design software where you're getting into, well, what color is this going to be, what are the shapes, what are the padding, what's the alignment, all of that stuff. So there is definitely a time and place for both of them. They are a little different, but you will never hear me bad mouthing any wireframing tool. If it works for you, that's what really matters. I would stay away from what we call the WYSIWYG editors, the what you see is what you get, where you just pick these templates and throw them out on the page and they like spit out the code for you. And you're like, okay, this code isn't anything that I would read or write on my own, but I guess I can use it. Then you get into this whole like, well, how do I maintain that? How do I make changes to it? Gets a little messy. But in terms of whiteboard apps or design apps or wireframing apps whatever works for you is really important. And I think you guys have seen through all, all of the different presentations that everyone's taken a different approach, and that's okay, right? The idea here is whatever works to get your project started, that's what matters the most. All of that said, Michael, we are over to you.
Alrighty. All right, so my project was and also a late game change. We had started out with something sort of high-minded about autocross, but it was going to turn into I couldn't really figure out how to get started. So I remember a noticing that I should be decided to go for a maintenance minder slash I guess chores minder app for myself, because I find that I'm very busy these days, and if I find myself sitting still, I need to be doing something, and I never actually know what I need to be doing. So all the periodic chores, things like cleaning the gutters, all that stuff that you need to think about for the spare time that you're going to have. So a repository for that, the ability to organize my stuff, spit out a daily, weekly, monthly, try to level load, stuff like that, add families, all that other fun stuff. But essentially, yes, a to-do list app, because I need lists every day. Otherwise, I don't get anything done. All right, so here's my first screen. That is just your standard landing and logging login page. You get to make your new reg sign up. So I'd go over this. We did try to go for a mobile first layout. I didn't do very well on the first screen, but this is supposed to be sized for what we call a large Android, I think.
Okay.
Again, same thing. New user registration, simple one here. I decided to go for the standard stuff. Just email twice, password twice. Make sure that there's going to be some terms and conditions we have to agree to, because who knows? Probably if it's going on a phone, we're gonna sell some data. And then finally, we get to our last one, which is your standard task entry form, right? So brand new task. So figure out your category, drop down list if you'd like, make your own. Again, same thing, task name, and then any details or notes, things like, do the baseboards, make sure you get behind your ears, whatever you want to call it. Then going into playing around a lot with the frequency, because you don't necessarily need to do things every week or every 10 days or something like that. So pick your frequency. So one time or every so many days, weeks, months, your choices, and then when you want to start this new regimen. So you get there and it'll plot everything out for you, and you'll be able to get hopefully when I do my more screens, your upcoming today, upcoming this week, the next 30 days. And then we start doing things like maybe even creating groups so you can do like family chores that way.
Awesome. So you beat me to it, right? We need just probably only one more screen, which is what's the homepage or the dashboard look like for everything you just said, the today's tasks, the what's coming up this week. I will say, don't underestimate how hard it is to work with dates on the computer. Date math is something that you think, oh, it's a computer, that's something it should be able to do well. It is much harder than you may anticipate, but that's okay, right? Like that's because that is the core thing of this app. That's something that I can kind of help you work through. We don't touch on dates too much in the curriculum itself, but JavaScript does have a date, functionality basically built right in. So I think it's a really good idea. Just that one more screen, right, to plan through of what's my dashboard look like, where's the log out button, where's the add new task button. But other than that, this meets all the requirements. We'll save into the database fine. And then we can work together on some interesting logic to figure out, hey, this task was created 4 days ago, but they said it was every day. So how do we make sure that that repeats without necessarily filling up the database with, oh, we got to put this in every single day, basically. So we can work on that together. But clear idea, gets the point across, one more screen, and I think you'll be good to go.
All right, thank you.
Is there anyone else who hasn't gone? If you don't go now, I will hunt you down in Slack and make sure that you schedule a one-on-one with me. Anwar.
Yep. Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Awesome. Let me just share my screen real quick. That's weird. Where do I share my screen from?
If the Zoom app doesn't have the green share screen
Oh,
button
there
down
it is.
at
Yeah.
the bottom,
I was
it might be
looking. I was looking at the top right. Awesome. And it's asking for system settings. That is very odd. Sorry, give me 1 second. It's asking some questions about system settings. All right, are you able to see my screen?
We are now, yes.
Awesome. So basically, I was planning on looking into a smart managing system or some sort of like route optimization system. But after speaking with Jason or just shooting him a quick Slack message, I found out that he works with IoTs, and I was looking down to it and I noticed IoT systems there, and I just thought of, oh, I guess I could make some sort of IoT management system where I could like address whatever complexities there are. I know there's not much real-time visibility available right now and just like not much centralized control. So I was thinking of making sort of a dashboard and monitoring system that connects the sort of the IoT devices to the database. And my main issue there is just sort of how I could have the server communicate to the databases. And my mock-up or my wireframe would be right here. So essentially it would prompt the user with a startup right here. I was able to push this through with the Figma, and then there's some sort of AI app that gives you recommendations. You would, of course, you'll be prompted here on the bottom. You'll see the controls and your device connected. And if you were to press your settings or profile, you would be led over to here, which gives you like sort of an overview of the sensors you have, the cameras, the thermostat, and et cetera, et cetera. My main issue here is just sort of like the design. It looks horrible, so that's one thing I will have to work on. And once you're done with that, you could press whatever the options you like on the left here. Here is a sort of an example for the monitor page. It displays info, settings, notification, and I guess billing if you were to it would be a subscription-based type of thing, but yeah, here's a login. My main issue here would be some sort of like setting up a user authentication, which I honestly have no clue. And after that, it would be the data trends, which I it's really of a far reach, so to speak, for me. But this was where I got stuck on having the data or sort of the IoT devices speak to the server. But that's pretty much it. I know my sales pitch is not the
No,
best.
so I'm a big Internet of Things guy.
Mhm.
I've got over 100 internet connected devices at my
Mhm.
house. So
Mhm.
fortunately, this is an area that I have some experience with.
Mhm.
I would say the core thing that you'll want to focus on is
Mhm.
like pick 3 devices that you
Mhm.
already have that are IoT and
Mhm.
go, these are what I'm going to focus on, right? So whether that's a smart thermostat or
Mhm.
a door lock or a
Mhm.
smart plug or
Yeah.
whatever it is, I think
Mhm.
if you narrow down that and go, all right, what's the information that I care about the most out of these, right? All right, the thermostat, it's not just what the current temperature is, but it
Yeah.
may be the number of hours it's run in a day, and
Mhm.
that's what I want to track in my dashboard, right? Excuse me. I've built a couple things. I've got a smart circuit breaker panel, and I absolutely hate the interface that came with that app. So
Mhm.
I built a little dashboard that allowed me to see the 5 circuit breaker usage that I actually care about without having to scroll and click on 19 different things in the app.
Yeah.
Once you narrow down on, hey, these are the devices, it becomes a
Mhm.
little bit easier to think through on the dashboard side.
Yeah.
Hey, this is what I want to display, right? So I
Yeah.
would encourage you to kind of simplify your mockups down even more and go, all right, what are the core things that we need to do here? Homepage, which you already tackled, that looks good.
Mhm.
The account, yep, I think that's all good to go. I don't think you have to make any modifications there.
Mhm.
Um, the account creation, which is something that we do teach in our curriculum, right?
Mhm.
So that goes for everyone in class, right? We will teach you how to create an account and integrate it with the database and be able to authenticate users and make only their information show up. All of that's built into the curriculum, so you don't need to worry about that. Excuse me. And then I would limit it down to I need to be able to add or link a device,
Mhm.
and then I need to be able to show that device's information on the dashboard. And I think
Yeah.
if you limit it down to those things, everything else that you have here, like the control and customization and all of that stuff, that can
Mhm.
definitely come down the line.
Mhm.
But I think if you narrow it down to homepage, create an account, add a device, and specifically what information you want to show about that device on the dashboard,
Yeah.
I think that the entire project might feel a little bit more manageable.
Okay, that makes sense because it was sort of a big leap trying to have the data transmit from the back end to the front end. I really don't know how I'd go about doing that, but thanks.
Yeah, so and that's where the advice for like narrow down your devices and go for a device like you know that you have that's already working.
Mhm.
Because if you get too broad, sometimes you get immersed in these platforms where you're like, there's so much information, I don't know where to get started.
Yeah.
So narrowing that down and being like, I already have this one IoT device.
Yeah.
This is the one that I'm going to try and get the data out of. And I
Mhm.
know that this data exists. So that's what I'm going to try and focus on.
Mhm.
That will make it much easier to actually get the ball rolling and get the data extracted from it.
So what would be your thoughts on emulating the IoT firmwares? Because I see there's Amazon AWS has like an IoT device simulator. Would you be against that or?
The IoT device simulator is fine, but it's
Mhm.
not quite as exciting as a real device, right? And so I would recommend picking an IoT device that you actually have and then looking into the API that hardware provider may supply.
Awesome, awesome. Thanks so much.
Yeah. And I've not used the AWS IoT APIs. So
Mhm.
if you're like, no, I really think that this is the right way to go, and
Mhm.
I have a hardware device that can connect into the AWS IoT,
Mhm.
then that is totally fine.
Mhm.
And you can pursue that. I just personally haven't used it. I've
Mhm.
done a ton of smart home automation, but
Mhm.
everything I've done has either been through the SmartThings API, which is my Zigbee and Z-Wave hub,
Mhm.
or has been directly with the manufacturer's API. So like my smart breaker panel is a Leviton
Mhm.
panel, and so I've used the Leviton API to retrieve the information that I needed.
Awesome. Do you know anything about MQTT? I was browsing Reddit for how I could have the server communicate to the devices. I don't know. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I don't have a experience with MQTT directly. I use something called Bool and Bool MQ, which is a
Mhm.
Redis-based queuing system, which isn't directly related to MQTT, which I believe is more of a protocol.
Mhm.
Um, but it all depends on like what device you end up with.
Yeah.
And so that's, I think that if you get lost in the conceptual of
Mhm.
oh, I'm going to tackle all of MQTT, it may be
Mhm.
too daunting. But if you narrow that down and go, I've got this temperature sensor and
Mhm.
it says it supports it in MQTT. So my one goal is going to be not just learn MQTT, but it's going to be get MQTT to work to relay that information.
Mhm.
That becomes a lot more tangible and a lot more reachable goal
Mhm.
than MQTT is so broad and has so many concepts. Where do I even start?
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks so much.
Of course. Is there anyone else who needs to go?
Yeah, I'll go. I must
Go
say
for
I
it.
was struggling to come up with a ideal that interests me. So this is fairly new, but I thought about like some sort of MP3 converter. So I just did a little wireframe on paper here. And I wanted to be able to download from direct sources and other parties as well. So I just did a little this is the home page here, little settings icon. It's gonna open up and you put your link in here, downloads. So like a little check indicator, it's gonna be downloaded, a little mini nav bar at the bottom here. And the library will look something like this. And you could just filter through what you're looking for. And a settings page not yet completed, but it'll be it'll say settings at the top. The app name, the icon will be visible here. Then either account login and create here, and then once you complete that process, it will look like the example down here.
You still there?
So
Oh, you froze a little. Okay.
that's kind of what I Capstone. I think this interest. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so great app idea. It seems very simplistic, but it will be a lot more complex than you think in terms of being able to filter the library or search through the library. The only thing I would say is think through when you are downloading a link. Oftentimes the information that you're downloading it from doesn't include the metadata for the title and artist and album name and all of that stuff. So if you're thinking about this as kind of um uh like a downloaded sourced version of iTunes, that's just something to think about of needing to add in the fields for name and artist and all of that kind of stuff. But other than that, I think that will be fine. We will have to talk through kind of where the downloaded music is stored. Because if you would like to store it in the cloud, that adds some complexity on the technical coding side. But if you want to store it all locally, then that's something that can definitely work out. But anyway, a really good idea. I think, no need to reinvent the wheel there. And I think the interface is pretty clear. So checks all the boxes.
Let's say one of my like favorite apps that provided mixtapes got shut down. So that's kind of where it came from. And I'm like not able to access any of those old mixtapes. So I wanted to like implement that a bit because there's a way you could download them from the web. So I'll have to speak to you furthermore to just gather more information to see what's possible and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to schedule a one-on-one and we can kind of talk through what may be helpful is coming up with like a requirements list. And a requirements list sounds super complicated, but can just be bullet points, right? Like I want to be able to paste in a URL. I want to be able to make sure that the file gets downloaded onto my computer. I want to make sure that I can access the metadata, or I want to be able to make sure I can update song track names, or kind of thinking through that. But I think it's a great capstone idea and obviously solves a need that you have found. So that's all that really matters. So good work.
Alrighty, thank you.
All right, I believe that was everyone. Yes. Well, did I miss anyone? Sorry, I shouldn't assume. Okie doke. So how are we feeling?
Pretty good.
We excited seeing other people's ideas? Are we crapping ourselves and going, oh my God, I'm seeing how big of a project this is? Are we excited to dive into the coding things? How are we feeling?
I'm ready to dive into the coding because I know that once I start actually making the interactive components, I start thinking of more stuff and how to
Absolutely.
figure out different problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, from my experience when going through college, when I went from having a big project idea to then actually going through learning the necessary coding and aspects, really makes things not only simpler, but also makes things from challenging to either knowing that it's possible or impossible. So definitely, like Deandra said, um, get into the code and would help us definitely have a much more clear mindset of what we have in store for ourselves.
Absolutely. Terry?
I have a question. I asked Nick this, but he wasn't too sure about it. So, um, have you ever had a cohort where like you had like somebody have like work on like the same like capstone, like working like together kind of?
Yeah, so we normally don't recommend working together as a group, only because the whole point of the capstone is to say, hey, I'm taking the concepts that I'm learning in class and then applying them directly in, right? And so the concern that you have in a group project is what often happens in the work world, right? Which is, oh, I'll work on the front end, you work on the back end. I don't really like this front end stuff, so I'm going to let you go be the HTML person, and you don't really like this back end stuff. So I'll go build the whole API, and then we'll be good to go. And it's like, well, not quite. The whole idea of the capstone is so that you're getting practice with the concepts that we're learning, right? And so that's the only reason why we don't encourage group projects. With that said, we do encourage you to help each other on your capstones, right? So if you're at a point where you're like, I'm frozen here, I've asked Max for help, something's not really clicking, you know, I just saw this other person and they already have their front end done. At that point, that is totally fine to go ask for help, work in group sessions on this. We do want to see you have your own capstone ideas and projects. But that doesn't mean that you have to be the sole author of it, right? You can work together on different things, but everyone should still have their own individual project. The other thing I will say is we have had we have had groups in the past that on the surface, on paper, had the same exact idea of, hey, I want to build a grocery store app that lets you keep track of a list. And I sat down with both of the students and I was like, hey, you have similar ideas here, but I don't want you to feel like you're copying each other. And what ended up happening is one student went down the list, the path of scraping all of these different websites. And when you go into Wegmans and DeWitt, that's going to have a very different aisle location than the Wegmans and Camillus, right? And so he went down the route of scraping different Wegmans websites and building a huge database of where all of the products were. Well, the other student went an entirely different path and built a application where you could actually build out a map of the grocery store, and it would tell you the shortest route to get to all of the different items in the store. So one went down a scraping path and building out the database. Another one went down a map building path. When you say grocery store app, that just sounds like the same thing. You go, well, how many different ways can there be to build a grocery store app? Turns out a lot. And so I would, encourage you to help each other out on your projects. But at the end of the day, everyone having their own idea and getting practice with all the different modules we teach is pretty important.
And how often like near like the end of the cohort do you usually get booked? Do you get like super like heavy like booked, or is it more live? Because no, because like the reason why I asked, because like I try to like like we try to get these group study going on so we can help each other out with our capstones, and we have like a like pick each other's brains and ideas and whatnot though. So that's the reason why I asked about you getting booked like oh
Yeah, it's usually the last I was going to say 3 weeks, but it's usually only the last 2 weeks. The last week of the program, we have no new content to teach, right? So you graduate on Thursday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I just show up and answer capstone questions for you guys, right? So you've got that 5:30 to 8:30 time slot carved out. The last 3 days are all about just open office hours. You raise your hand in Zoom, we screen share through your problem, we go on to the next student, right? And you would be surprised at how when you get to the end, they say the first or the last 10% is as equally hard as the first 90%, right? Meaning that you get a lot of progress, and then you get to that final part, and that final part is where you get roadblock and tripped up. So we try and structure class in one-on-ones, especially towards the end of the program, to say, where are you stuck? Let's get you unstuck. Let's make sure you know what your next goal is. And let's make sure that you can hit your next goal in the next day or two. And then when you do, you find a new place that you're stuck, and we repeat that cycle all over again. So if you guys are setting up group events, and would like me to attend, I'm happy to show up either online or in person. And then the last week of class, we will probably hold down at Common Space, so that you guys can be in person and flag me down and get in-person help. But we'll also have the Zoom room running, so that you can also get virtual help. With all of that said, the reason why we do these capstone check-ins is to make sure that you don't reach week 20 and go, oh, I still don't have an idea, or, oh, I haven't made a wireframe, right? So the next check-in, the next requirements are going to be having some HTML built. I don't need your whole site built. I don't need it to look perfect, but we want to see at least 2 pages built of your capstone, right? The home screen, the login screen, and maybe a third screen, right? We want to just see, hey, I'm starting to code this out. And that's not even at the halfway point, right? Because after that, we move into React and making components easier to reuse. And then we get into the back end in the database. And before you know it, it's graduation. So these capstone check-ins are scheduled in a way to make sure that you're not falling behind. And if you are falling behind, you'll get that personal feedback, and I'll reach out and say, not this particular capstone check-in, but if we're not seeing progress by the next check-in, which I think is around week 12, that's when we start diving into, hey, where's that initial, where do you need additional help? Let's make sure that you're getting started. A lot of people have that initial shell shock of, this is so big, where do I even start? And the answer is in the top left. And start writing code, right? What's the top of your screen? It's the nav bar. Get your nav bar done. Your nav bar isn't perfect. You need help on it, but that's fine. You finish the nav bar, move on to the next section. Just going page by page, component by component is the way to get it done. Ask my question.
Yes. So for the wireframes, how many pages is the minimum before we start building out the HTML, CSS?
There's no hard number, right? For some people's apps, it may be 2 or 3. For other people's apps, it may be 15. So the real answer there is, what's the MVP, right? And I think I've given this advice to a couple of the students of break your site down into roughly 5-ish core features. Whether that's, I need to be able to add a plant, I need to be able to view all my plants, I need to be able to view the details of the plants, and I need to be able to delete the plants, right? Or whether that's, I need to be able to have an admin page, I need to be able to create drivers, I need to be able to create riders, and I need to be able to see the utilization of those riders, right? Whatever it is, break those 5-ish core features into a list, and then wireframe those out. And when you're wireframing those out, you may go, oh, that's just 5 separate pages, or you may say, oh, I need a separate screen for this, and you may hit 10 or 15. But I would cap it at probably that 10 to 15 range. I would say if you have that many number of screens, you may be reaching a point where we're getting a little too ambitious, and we got to cut back on the MVP side of things. So the answer there is between 2 and 15, but that really is based off of the functionality of the app.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions about Capstone? Okie doke. We are going to get started on our calculator project. I realize that it is 8 o'clock. We will get quicker at these capstone check-ins. I promise you they go faster. Everyone's excited about their initial ideas. And because of that, the first one just takes a fair amount of time to go through. But hopefully all of you guys are getting a taste of each other's projects and ideas. Hopefully you're seeing an idea and going, oh, I can do that in my own app. Hopefully you're getting an idea of, all right, I'm over the initial hump. I've got the idea, I've got the concept, I can explain the concept. So now it's just a matter of finishing up those final screens if you need to, thinking through that last bit of user experience of, does the user know what to click on next? Is that represented in my wireframes? Is it clear that the user can add data and view the data and delete data? All of that is really good. I'd say over half of you have reached the point where your wireframes are fully complete and you can dive into the coding. Otherwise, hopefully your next steps of what the final screens are that you need to build is pretty clear. So from now, the next check-in is not until July 15th. So you've got a month and a half, and that next Capstone check-in is going to have at least 2 of your pages fully built out in HTML. They don't need to be pixel perfect. They don't need to have everything on it. They don't need to have pages and pages of dummy data. But that July 15th check-in is all about, hey, do I have at least 2 pages built? Or if I have a very page-heavy application, do I have a majority of the pages built? That's what we want to see by July 15th. Just to share the schedule with you. We are right here, week 7. We have this week and 3 additional weeks of JavaScript left. JavaScript's the hardest module. We've got several projects planned for you. After those projects, we do a self-assessment together and kind of figure out what concepts do you keep on hearing me say, and you're like, shut up, I don't know how to use that. Give me an example of just that thing. So you can see the projects coming up here. We've got the calculator tonight. We will start the movie seats project next week, which is a really big one. That ends up being like 300 lines of code, but we get into all different kinds of data structures there, page interactivity. We will build the weather app coming up. Then we get into a blog, which is really where we cross that line into, hey, this is really a web application. We fill out forms, we save the data somewhere, we display all of that data on the website. And then we will finish up with tic-tac-toe, which is a really fun one to get into algorithms and figuring out how to make the computer play basically for you, thinking through all of the steps of that. We finish out June with Ryan coming in. Ryan is based in Philly, but he grew up in this area and worked at Density for years. He is now a contractor at Bread, full stack developer, maybe one of the smartest engineers I have ever met. He can run circles around me. And has been part of the program since the beginning as well. So he comes in to teach you all about APIs. The APIs module is 2 weeks, but it is broken up in the middle because July 4th, we figured we might as well give you a break in between there. So the program actually is 25 weeks. If you counted it out, we just take a week off in the middle. So the first week of July, we are off. The week of 4th of July, Ryan comes back right after that, finishes up APIs, and then I come back in and we start diving into React. So that is what is coming down the pipeline. Like I said, your next Capstone check-in is not until July 15th. Do not wait until July to start building out your HTML, because you will reach a point where you want to throw your computer out the window. There is a grid system, there is a row and a column, and you cannot figure out why it is down on the next row instead of going over across the page. That is what I am here for. That is what the one-on-ones are for. That is what sending me a zip of your code in Slack is for. Or if you're feeling ambitious, putting it in Git and making sure I have access to it, and then I can pull down your code and give you feedback that way. So that is what is coming down the pipeline and gets us to roughly the halfway point. Cornelius.
Yeah, I was gonna add on to it too, to avoid stress when also getting to your capstones. Like you can use everything that we learned so far. Like you can just like take each code line, like you can look, like run it through like we did before in Visual Studio, run it and look at what part of the website that we worked on will be useful for your capstone. And you're like, oh, we did this and I want to use that. You can copy and paste it, or you can retype it and just change it up a bit to make your life easier. And there's also resources. There's YouTube, there's other things to help make your lives for this capstone a lot easier. Like we're in 2024, we're 21st century, everything's evolving, everything's becoming a lot easier to understand and grasp when you do everything possible.
Absolutely. Yeah. Using the existing projects, the only thing I would caution you against is finding a template out on the internet, and then using that template as your starting point, right? So if you want to find code snippets out on the internet, that's totally fine. But there's something called a script kiddie, which is a somewhat derogatory term for someone who just finds different snippets on the internet. I mean, this dates back to the MySpace page days where they would go find a little code snippet, throw it on their page. It would do exactly what they wanted. And then you would be like, but do you know how that works? Like, do you know what JavaScript is? And they would go, no, I don't care. It just works. That's what we want to avoid, right? So when you find a template for your site and you go, oh, this is really pretty, I'm just going to plug my own information into it. You don't necessarily build up the HTML skills that you need to really be able to build anything. So while I am not 100% against code snippets, I would say your top two sources are going to be previous code, like Cornelius just mentioned, right? Whether that's from my GitHub link or that's from the My Code folder that we created on your desktop, that's definitely your number one source. Your second source will be Bootstrap, right? Any code that is on Bootstrap is 100% max approved for you to use in your website. And then anything on top of that, you are definitely welcome to take code snippets or use ChatGPT to get some influence there. But please, please, please make sure that if you are using a source other than Bootstrap or R code, that you've gone through and said, I can explain this. I can look at this and tell you how this is working under the hood. If you can do that, you are fully welcome to use other sources. Like I said, just don't start with a template. Don't start with a site that looks 90% of what you want, and you're just plugging in your information. You're not going to learn HTML that way, right? You're not going to be confident. You're not going to be able to explain that. But if you are using Bootstrap snippets, if you can read through the documentation and understand what it's doing, then that is totally fine to use basically for any code. And if you are facing that shell shock of, I don't even know how to get started, and you are facing that for more than a week or two, that's the time to schedule a one-on-one. And if you can't schedule a one-on-one with me and you can't get help from other students, shoot me a Slack message and be like, I know this is a really weird time, but can you meet at 6 a.m.? And I'll say, no, are you nuts? But I can probably meet at 7. And that is totally fine, right? So if the one-on-one times do not work on my Calendly, please just shoot me a Slack message and we'll find a time to help you get started. Reminder that we are only on week 7. We're a third of the way there, right? Roughly. My math? Yeah, we're roughly a third of the way there. But we don't want you to get frozen at any point. And if you feel like you are getting frozen and stuck on just getting going, reach out for help. Whether from me, whether from Jason, whether from your fellow students, whether from the mentors, which I really know I need to assign to you guys and keep on dropping the ball. Promise you I will get you mentors. Someone did ask, can I change my entire app idea? Yes-ish. So you want to be really careful about that, right? We have had people change all the way up until the middle of the program. And after the middle of the program, after that, it gets really dicey because you've got a lot of ground to cover. So I would say, yes, it is fine to change your idea up to the next capstone check-in, but also keep in mind that if you change your idea, you then need to meet all of the requirements going back for previous capstone check-ins as well. So that means that next capstone check-in, you have to have all of your wireframes done for the new idea and also have to have a majority of the HTML finished as well. So it is okay to change your idea. If you get halfway into this and you're like, this is a stupid idea, I am not passionate about this, and I will not make it to the end, you can change your idea. That is okay. But just keep in mind that you are digging a hole that is not impossible to get out of. And if you're really struggling and just want some one-on-one attention, that is also totally fine as well. Asma.
What other design tools did you mention earlier that we can try out if Figma is a little bit too complicated?
Yeah, there is so Jamboard, I really like the idea of Jamboard. But they Google has pulled the plug on them and has said they are shutting down in October, which is the only reason why I wouldn't like get too attached to them. The three that Google recommends is FigJam, Lucid, and Miro.
Miro, how do
Miro
you
is
spell Miro?
I just put it in the chat. Miro's the only one that I have used professionally, and I think that that works great. I'm partial to FigJam because it is made by Figma, and then Lucid is made. I don't know if Lucid is the same company as Lucid Chart. No, they're not. So I have not used Lucid. Those are just the three that Google has recommended. And those are what we call whiteboarding applications. So those are really good for if you think about Google Docs, but for a whiteboard, that's basically what those are, right? So really easy to draw shapes and get things planned out. A whiteboard application might actually be better for prototyping, or I'm sorry, for wireframing compared to Figma, which would be more better for mockups, right? So if you're just trying to get ideas out of your head, those three tools, the whiteboarding side of things may be better for wireframes, and then it's up to you if you want to do that mockup step or you think you have enough inspiration. I would also encourage you as you're starting out your HTML code for your capstones, read through the components list at Bootstrap. Because there are a ton of components that we just haven't used at Bootstrap that are pre-built for you. So if you go into the docs and scroll down, forms is a good thing to just read through because everyone's application will obviously have to have a form in it at some point to create something. So that is good to read through, and then all of the components down here, right? So you can click into drop downs and go, oh, this is a really nice drop down. It's nicely formatted. It doesn't look ugly on a select. There are things in here like collapse, where you can collapse information in and out. There's things like modals that allow you to have like a little pop-up that shows on your page with buttons down at the bottom. And you can see that that's what it looks like in actual operation. That can be really helpful for like, are you sure you want to delete this item? There are things like popovers, which allow you to have like a little thing that shows up to the right of it. There are things like spinners where when you're loading data from the API, you want to, show that that data is coming in. There are just so many different things in here. There's little breadcrumbs that, show you how nested into your application you are. There are just so many different components in Bootstrap. So as you are getting into your HTML, before you think, hey, I need to make this from scratch, you need to build out all of the CSS. It's worth going through all of the different components in here and saying, oh, hey, look, there is actually an accordion that is already built. And as long as I have the JavaScript and the Bootstrap CSS in, you can use these components. Two questions I do get a lot. Do I have to use Bootstrap? Are you crazy? No, you don't have to, but I highly encourage you to, especially for the grid system. If you are feeling particularly ambitious, there are two other CSS frameworks that I can recommend. One is called Material UI, and it is a less it feels a little bit more modern. It feels like it's a little less juvenile, a little bit nicer of components. So if you want to look into Material UI, you can look into that. Material UI does become significantly easier to use when we learn React, but they do have a lot nicer components. So I want to throw that in the back of your head. The other one is the other one is Tailwind CSS. Tailwind CSS is very popular for people who are very design oriented, who want to have layout already done for them. Tailwind CSS is much harder to learn, but is much more powerful once you do learn it. I would say 95% of students stick with Bootstrap, and that is what I would recommend for you guys. But if you want to look into Tailwind, Material UI, or Materialize, those are three things that you guys can consider. Just know that we won't be using them directly in class, and I will probably be able to help you a little less on them directly, but those are all things that you can consider. Another question that I get a lot is, if we're learning React, why don't we just start writing React code? Why do I have to build this all out in HTML and CSS? The answer is the vast majority of your HTML code will be convertible to React. So React is a framework that makes it easier for us to integrate our data through our JavaScript into our HTML. That's the main thing that it solves. The second thing that it solves is the ability to reuse code. So when you guys are building out your website, and you've got three of the same template that you want to use, you have to copy and paste that HTML code 3 separate times. React introduces this idea of components, where we can write that component out one time and reuse that component, especially integrated into our data, so we don't need to duplicate our code over and over again. So the reason why we don't just dive right into React, why we don't say don't build anything until we get to React, is a lot of your HTML code will be migratable into a React project, which will be coming about 2 months from now. Yeah, about 2 months from now. Okay, clearly we're not going to get a new project started in 7 minutes. That is totally fine. I'm going to stick around in case there are any other capstone questions. Terry, there is a question for you in the chat as well.
Quick question, Max. When we are, for the ones that are still working on their wireframes, when we're completed with that, we can just shoot you a message and just schedule a one-on-one to go over it.
If you want to go over it, yes, you can just grab a one-on-one with me in the calendar. But if I do encourage you to resubmit in Canvas when you do have it done. And I'll get a notification on that so I can get the grading up to date as well. So whenever you have it done, submit it in Canvas. I will get you feedback when I see it. But if you would prefer a one-on-one to review it, then definitely go ahead and schedule that.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Joe, I think I can make a calculator interface in 5 minutes if you really want to see me fly.
Hey, look, all right, go.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, let me see.
No, we'll take it easy on you because you haven't touched HTML in 2 weeks. So want to make sure that everyone's comfortable with those steps. I mean, I could just go ChatGPT and say, make me a calculator interface in HTML using buttons, and we'd get
Do it.
there.
See how
But
wait, hang on. See how good it will do it on the first try. Try to make the best prompt possible. All right, hang on. I'm starting a timer.
no, son of a. Am I signed into Google? Tell me I'm signed into Google. Okay.
There's got to be a category for this at like any percent.
Calculator speed run.
Oh, it's even writing some JavaScript functions out for me. Oh, and the JavaScript itself.
Is this 3.5?
No, it looked like it's 4.
Definitely is 4.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm like, this seems a bit too,
No, it's 3.5 because you got to pay
is
for
it really
4.
3.5?
That's
All right.
3.5.
All right,
Oh.
let's see.
So it wrote, this is a little verbose for me because we're gonna, well, it also is probably more styled than mine would be. But that's personally a little bit too much CSS for me. This is gonna look, oh, how did they lay out the buttons? Button with, yeah, so this is going to look like complete shit because it's going to be all of the numbers right across the screen. It's not going to be like in a grid fashion, which is how I would have done it. So like I would have had a div of buttons and then each button would be in its own div. The on click we are going to use. I don't think we apply different styling for numbers and operators, but this is pretty much spot on except for the rows of the buttons. We are gonna do an append number. We are gonna do a calculate result. We aren't gonna do a switch case. So this we can do in about 4 lines of code, and it's doing it in 15. Clear screen, we're going to work with the DOM directly, and then update screen is a function that we'll build into other functions. So I'd say
Well,
this
that
is probably 85% of the way there, other than the interface not showing in a grid pattern, which it doesn't
now,
look like yeah. Yeah, so other than this being in a grid pattern, this is pretty spot on to what we're going to do.
when did the arrow functions become popular?
ES 2015.
Okay, so I was just looking at the function style that it made it in, and it's using the regular,
Yeah, so I can
the actual
say
like function
use
determiner.
arrow functions instead. Um, 2015 is the year that support for it came out. That doesn't necessarily answer your question of what year did it become popular. But it did change over to arrow functions, which is the newer standard. And then I would say display the buttons in the HTML using a grid pattern that looks like a traditional physical calculator.
The good thing about me having 4 is I can ask it questions about relatively current Bootstrap, since 3.5 was like I think April 21, and now I think 4 is running off of April 23. And then I can sometimes give it a link to something to like check the documentation if it's readily available, and it can pull some stuff out. Sometimes kind of hit or miss with that though.
Yeah, so it looks like it did struggle on, it did not grid out my, oh yeah, it did. Display grid for repeat 60. So it is doing that. It is solving it in the CSS, which I choose not to do because I'm not a big CSS fan. I like structuring my HTML more than trying to make it bend to my CSS. Personal preference. But this does come a lot closer. It uses the arrow functions. Again, you know, if you asked it to do this code, would you necessarily be able to explain it, right? The Now I'm getting defensive and biased, and it is 8:30, so if you guys want to head out, that's totally fine. But the benefit to spending 3 hours of us actually doing this in class is that it's not start at the top and work your way down. It's We got to build an interface. We got to make the buttons work. We got to update the screen. We got to make math operators show up. We have to learn about eval. We need to do additional styling. We need to handle edge cases, right? And the order in which we do that, which I can rattle off the top of my head, isn't necessarily apparent to you guys as beginners. Compared to ChatGPT, which, yes, they gave you the 200-line answer that we will end up at the end of the night, but it didn't necessarily do it in a way that you can ingest it. And as, you know, all literate people, that's how we think. We start at the top and we work our way down. But when we're writing code, 9 times out of 10, we don't start at the top and work our way down. We jump around based off of the order that the user interacts, not necessarily the order that we write the code. But with all of that said, yes, it did build roughly what we will come close to building tomorrow.
But not as good how we would like write it.
Pretty close, right? It's more about, you have to understand that these are beginner JS projects, right? So the AI is also very new. And so it can do these smaller tasks pretty well. Yes, it just did that in seconds. And it's going to take us 3 hours to do it, but you're going to also have a much better understanding of how we build it in the order that we did it and be able to debug it and ask questions as you go, compared to the ChatGPT version where it's like, well, are we building a calculator so you guys have a calculator on your profile? Or are we building a calculator so you guys get experience with JavaScript concepts like the document object model and events and all of that stuff, right? So I don't think it's fair to pit our 3 hours against ChatGPT being able to pop it out, because when you get to my level as a senior developer, when I go to ChatGPT and I say, here's our 180,000 line code base, I need you to add this feature, ChatGPT just spits out such garbled junk that it's like, that's not helpful at all, right? And so the interesting argument that I heard at OpenHack 2 sessions ago was, yes, ChatGPT can replace junior developers, but it can't replace senior developers. And the only way that you can become a senior developer is by having human junior developers who are learning to become senior developers. So where does that put you as a company hiring for the long term, where you know you need senior developers, but you also need to feed the pipeline of junior developers so that they can work their way up to senior so that they can outperform what the AI can currently do? Just thought it was an interesting argument and didn't disagree with. All right, final call for questions tonight. All right, great job on capstones, everyone. We will start with calculator tomorrow. Have a good night, and I will see you guys tomorrow.